Alrighty, y'all. Looks like this is shaping up to be my temporary storage area on the property. Because yeah, I just put this little base down here to set up a little 10 by 12 arrow shed in a box I got from the Habitat store for a really good price. In the end, I probably could just make it, out of 2x4s, especially scrap 2x4s for cheaper than I got the arrow shed for, but it is what it is. Although I'll save money on the roof, I suppose. That'll be the biggest cost saving. But the 2x4s and whatnot, probably cheaper than the shed kit, but it is what it is. And so we just set up this temporary base here. I didn't really film any of that because this is not how you want to set up a shed base. It's fairly level, and I'm just putting just little random blocks here and there, some wood and some blocks. And see, you're not supposed to put blocks that direction. A brick here and there, but these pieces of wood will rot at some point. And then the far end, it's straight on the dirt. And maybe at some point I'll dig underneath that once it's built and put some bricks under there. But really, this is just, it'll be here maybe a year. Watch, 5 years from now, I'll be like, oh, finally time to get rid of this shed. But as long as it's here, it's just here for a temporary shop, a little bit more storage, but mainly to put tools in and do some woodworking out here. But yeah, so we'll just put some decking down here. I got some of that used plywood, or not used plywood, but shipping crate plywood that's not certified for anything other than shipping crates, really. It's just not very good stuff, but we'll put it down, maybe 1 or 2 layers here, and then build the arrow shed on there. And I will tape the arrow shed building. All right, there it is. Just threw my cheap plywood up there. They're like 3 foot by 7 foot, so I had to cut them a little bit. And yeah, we just threw the metal base around for the arrow shed and to see if it fits. And I wanted just this little lip to hang out over the edge around the whole thing, but I don't, I can get, 2 sides to hang over. The other sides are they're really close, but not hanging over. So if I really want to trim it up, I can do that. But what I'll probably do is when I put the walls in, I'll put plastic on this side and then have it hanging over so that no water can drip into the floor. At least that's the hope, but we'll work on that when the time comes. All right, I got my worker there. Baby's gonna help me put this thing together, or most likely just supervise. But anyway, so we're gonna be building this arrow 10 by 12 shed. This one, it just has like the outer metal walls, and then you have to put wood in these sections. Metal roof though. So anyway, got everything laid out here. I think I've moved this thing so many times and haven't put it together, so hopefully everything's still here. I think I am missing 2 little L brackets, that are like literally this big, that I ended up thinking they were for something else. So I don't know, they're in a box somewhere, so hopefully I can find them or just substitute them. But anyway, all the wall framing is here. I have the roof trusses and whatnot over here, but we'll try to get this thing put together. So yeah, so step 1, it just shows how to put like the outer frame together. The box that this came in is about 5 feet high, so they're not going to have, your 10 by 12 foot sections built already. So they give you like 1, 2, 3 sections here and 2 sections on the outer one. So I did screw it together there, screwed this is the threshold, the door section here, so screw it together there, right there, and then the back one I think is just 2 sections as well. So, and the roof trusses, they're screwed together in 2 sections as well. Same with the roof peaks. But yeah, so now we'll set up I think it's step 3 or 4, where we start to make the actual frame for this. So that's where we'll pick up here. I lied, it's step 2 where we start to do the frame, which is funny because, you got step 1, step 2 still is like making the roof trusses and all that stuff, putting those together, basically all the frame, and then pieces. And then step 2 is still putting the frame together, which to me it would seem like it's step 3, but yeah. Step 2 includes putting the whole frame together. Step 3 is putting in the siding, which, okay, that's how we do. In case you're wondering, if you're going to be building one of these, you can do it by yourself. You're going to want to do it on a non-windy day and have a few clamps to hold things together in a few spots. But anyway. All right, here on each of the 4 corners, you want to put the bottom piece, and there's a little corresponding hole on each side here. And you kind of have to, after you get the first one, you have to compress the second side to get it to match up. And then just screw it in. And then most importantly, you want to make sure you match up the angles on the right sections. So it's kind of coming this way because your roof goes like that and down. So just make sure you get them right for each corner. Other than that, pretty straightforward on that part. And they do make it pretty easy to figure out which one's which, because 2 of them are this number, 2 of them are this number. Right corner post, 1122. So right is looking at the front door. Left one is on this one and this one. And then the part numbers are listed, you know, they're embossed in here. Probably can't read them on the phone, but they're there. Pretty simple. And here we go, boxing this bad boy in. And we start out using these clamps. And again, it felt pretty rickety, but like I said, as long as it's not windy and you're on a level spot, it should be good to go. They're pretty forgiving. At least it worked for me anyway. So let's see, a clamp there, and then hold it up and screw it. And then we'll switch around on the other end here when I get to the other side, but we'll describe that in a second here. All right, we got the top frame boxed in here. Not too bad. And obviously I was using a clamp, but then I figured out on this one that really you just put one corner in and just have it sitting at an angle down here and holding itself up. Screw one in, come over, lift it up, screw the other in, and you'll be good. And don't do what I did, because it tells you in the direction. Don't forget to put these in before you put it up. Luckily there's you know, I figured it out before I put this one on, so there's a little more space and flexibility, so I just kind of tucked them in and then just put them in there. But they also say, you know, there's ways you can manipulate it with a wrench to get them in there, but they're in there now. And now we'll get the braces in here, and then after that step I believe it's siding time, but we'll work on what we work on. I don't know why the directions show this, but there's 4 that are 11-218 and then 2 that are 11-219. The 11-219s are supposed to be in the back and the 218s are supposed to be on the sides, but I can't see any differences, but we'll do what they say. So now that we got the outer corners, we'll fill in the middles as needed here. And I will talk about how some of the screw holes didn't line up, and it probably didn't in the end. But one thing I wasn't thinking about when I did that is that the box itself, the upper end wasn't square. So like, even though it looked, I wasn't using a level. So, maybe if you're going to be doing this, grab a level to make sure the whole square on the outer framing is square, so when the beams go straight up and down, they're actually level, and then maybe there'll be a screw hole where it needs to be. But I kept missing a few. But again, I'll describe how easy it is to just tap your own hole with these screws, because the metal's pretty thin. But anyway, there is that part. All right, here we are with the boxed frame in here. And some things I did notice, that when you are screwing in these bases, especially on these ones, like you'll find one hole and then see where this mark is. I don't know if I put that in or somebody else did, but the hole is actually here that was drilled. So it's just a manufacturing tolerance thing. We're not buying the highest quality, sheds here. They're sheds in a box. So basically, all you have to do, I mean, it's pretty thin metal, so just put the screw there, using a drill, put a bunch of weight behind it, it'll tap its own hole. So did that. This one, there was, like, I screwed it in where there was 2 holes there, and it comes down at an angle to match up with one hole. Or I could have went this way to this one, but if it went straight down, there was no hole. And I could have just pressed in it again and created its own hole, but I just moved it there. It's just at an angle, no big deal. I think the 2 back ones did match up in holes where they were pre-drilled, so that worked. But mainly this on these side ones didn't work out. But anyway, that's what I noticed. So not bad, just time consuming putting all those screws and nuts and bolts in. So we'll move on to the next. I think it's putting the plywood in here, whatever you use for siding. So these first 2 panels are the way you want to put the siding in. The rest of them, if you're going to do this, as a more permanent structure, get the proper siding. I just had some little shipping crate plywood that I bought from a guy, super cheap, and they're all about 3 foot by 7 foot, and you need 4 foot wide. So I had to cut them, the lengthwise. And so I was just using as many scraps as I could to fill in the gaps. But yeah, if I was going to keep this shed up for longer than a year or so, I would have gotten the proper stuff. But doing things on a budget, doing the best way I can. Anyway, in general, you want 3/8 inch thick panels, and they'll go in smooth like the first 2 in the front. But a lot of these are about 1/2 inch, and they will fit, but you got to really manipulate them to get them down in there. Plus, I didn't really cut a lot of them square. But they got in there. So anyway, this is where you'll really want to have another extra pair of hands. But if you don't, just use the clamps. They'll come in really handy. And it'll feel really flimsy, but it stays up there. And then once you start getting the screws in, then you can start removing clamps, and the thing will stay up there. And again, do it on a non-windy day so that wind doesn't help bend it over, because this is really flimsy metal. But once you get that side in, and then you go to the other side, that cross beam there, when you put that together, just screw the bottom section together, leave the top ones open, because the screws need to go through the gables there into the cross beam. And I think I started putting the screws in, so I had to take them out and then reinsert them. But avoid my mistake. And then once you get the first beam up there, the place feels a lot more sturdy. Again, still flimsy metal, so it's still flopping around, but at least they're not going to fall backwards or forwards or whatnot. And these little beams, they're okay. You don't want to be walking on them, obviously. And then the metal roofing is, super thin. So don't ever walk on this roof. It ain't a tough shed, that's for sure. But it'll handle a decent snow load, I imagine. And then when you start to put the paneling on, this is where you want to make this shed as square as possible. And so pay close attention on at least the first few rows, because there is pre-drilled holes to match up. And so get them. This is where you can manipulate the squareness of the shed as you screw them in. So make sure you match up holes with holes there. So I think near the end, I had to drill a couple, new holes. And again, those ones, this metal's so thin, you just use the screw to tap its own hole with the drill and, high speed and pressure. But it'll work out in the end. And so I got it, fairly square, especially for my purposes. I just run out of daylight here in a second, so I'll just show you this first end, and then we'll give you a little breakdown of what I thought about it. All right, so here is the shed before I fill it up with too much stuff and make it unrecognizable. But yeah, pretty much done. Still have to put in some screws in the base to hold it down to the platform here, maybe square it up a little bit. But yeah, we got it all done. It's a little wet in here because, mainly because I just have like these little scrap pieces to make walls for now. So when they kind of bow water comes in or water hits that and just gets it wet. I might actually put like a plastic facing on the outside if I can find something that looks nice in those sections just to help keep it dry. But you know, if I was going to do this as a permanent structure and not just be here for a year or so, I would get full sheets like I did on the front two. I just happen to have pieces that would work, so you're not going to really have water issues there. But anyway, did this all solo, and I did put these two pieces in. I didn't show that, but it's just some bracing there, you know, increase snow load. I imagine keep it from rocking back and forth, keep it in square or whatnot. Did get all the, there's a screw here, 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 and here, something like that, just to keep that from falling out. Not too bad. These were the hardest ones. They're like in the middle sections of each of the panels to keep the, you know, the clamshell there from moving up and letting water in. They're kind of a pain because you obviously can't reach in here and hold it while you put this screw in, and you can't just, since it's overlapping and there'll be a space, you can't just put this screw down and then hand tighten it up here. So what I did is I got something with weight. I just used this with a piece of tape, put the screw in, put that on top of there so it would kind of hold it, you know, pushing, so the screw would, or, you know, nut would, or bolt would have a little end coming in here. And then I came down and just hand tightened, you know, a piece there of the nut on there. And then I just clamped a little mini channel lock on there, and that gives it enough weight behind it so then I can go back outside and then use a power drill and tighten it up. And so that seemed to be the way that worked. Yeah. And then they give you, there's little screw holes and all this with these little mini screws that, you know, come in the bag to secure this wood in place. And, you know, since it's kind of junky wood, I did have to use bigger screws and some, and they're kind of sitting out. So potential to poke people. So I might cut those off with a little Dremel cutoff tool in the end. But yeah, and you can see some little gaps here. I think you can screw in the bottom piece to get rid of that gap. There's little gaps here, so, you know, mice can still get in here, so I'll fill that up as well at some point. Then I'll put some styrofoam boards up against this and probably up in the ceiling to give it a little insulation and noise barrier, because I'll probably be doing some wood cutting in here and whatnot. So, you know, got the door up here. It's not the most sturdy door ever, so you don't want to put your most valuable tools in here, but I'm going to put a fair amount in here. But my neighborhood's pretty safe, so I'm not really worried about anybody breaking in. You know, it can happen, but yeah, I got good neighbors. So anyway, here it is. And you can do it yourself if you're watching this to figure out how to put one of these together. So hopefully I gave you enough little tips and things that came across when I put mine together. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on my next one.